Montgomery, Alabama. Roy S. Moore, a firebrand former Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, overcame efforts by top Republicans to rescue his rival, Senator Luther Strange, defeating him on Tuesday in a special primary runoff, according to the Associated Press. The outcome in the closely watched Senate race dealt a humbling blow to President Trump and other party leaders days after the president pleaded with voters in the state to back Mr. Strange. Propelled by the stalwart support of his fellow evangelical Christians, Mr. Moore survived a multi-million-dollar advertising onslaught, in the eight figures, financed by allies of Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader. His victory demonstrated in stark terms the limits of Mr. Trump's clout. Taking the stage after a solo rendition of How Great Thou Art, an exultant Mr. Moore said he had never prayed to win this campaign, only putting his political fate in the hands of the Almighty. "Together, we can make America great," he said, borrowing Mr. Trump's slogan and adding, "Don't let anybody in the press think that because he supported my opponent that I do not support him." For his part, Mr. Trump congratulated Mr. Moore in a tweet. "Luther Strange started way back and ran a good race. Roy, win in December," he wrote. In a race that began as something of a political afterthought and ended up showcasing the right's enduring divisions, the victory by Mr. Moore, one of the most tenacious figures in Alabama politics, will likely embolden other anti-establishment conservatives to challenge incumbent Republicans in next year's midterm elections. And more immediately, the party will be forced to grapple with how to prop up an often inflammatory candidate given to provocative remarks on same-sex marriage and race, all to protect the seat in a deep red state. Mr. Moore's incendiary rhetoric will also oblige others in the party to answer for his comments, perhaps for years to come, at a time when many Republicans would just as soon move on from the debate over gay rights. On December 12, Mr. Moore will face Doug Jones, a former federal prosecutor and the Democratic nominee, in a race that will test the party loyalties of center-right voters who may be uneasy about their nominee. It may also reveal just how reliably Republican the state has become in the quarter-century since a Democrat last won a Senate election here. Mr. Jones said in a statement that Alabama needed a serious senator who would rise above partisanship and work with everyone in Congress. He criticized the debate among Republicans leading up to Tuesday's election as lacking substance. "I will never embarrass the people of Alabama," Mr. Jones said. "I am running so the people of Alabama can be proud of their next senator." Mr. Moore, 70, has proved himself to be a political survivor since he first rose to prominence. He has been effectively removed from the state Supreme Court twice, the first in 2003, over his refusal to remove a statue of the Ten Commandments in the courthouse, the second last year, when he urged the state's probate judges to defy federal orders regarding same-sex marriage. And in recent days, both the President and Vice President Mike Pence have campaigned for Mr. Strange. Mr. Trump, an enormously popular figure in Alabama, cast aside the tradition of presidents treading carefully in contested primaries, as well as the warnings from his own advisors regarding a candidate trailing in the polls. Yet instead of delivering a tightly crafted testimonial at a rally on Friday, the president rambled for nearly an hour and a half about a range of topics, while openly questioning whether he was making a mistake coming into the state for Mr. Strange, who oriented his entire run around Mr. Trump's endorsement and stood looking on with a red "Make America Great Again" hat atop his head. Mr. Strange conceded defeat on Tuesday night before a subdued audience at a hotel outside of Birmingham, acknowledging in a moment of striking candor that he did not fully grasp the forces at play in his loss. "We're dealing with a political environment that I've never had any experience with," Mr. Strange said. "The political seas, the political winds in this country right now are very hard to navigate. They're very hard to understand." He thanked Mr. Trump effusively, praising the president as a loyal friend and attempting to absolve him of any blame for the result. "If this causes him any trouble," Mr. Strange said, "it's not his fault." Mr. Strange's defeat was the first time an incumbent senator with active White House support has lost since 2010, when Arlen Specter, the longtime senator of Pennsylvania, was beaten in a Democratic primary after switching parties. But his loss was not just a blow to Mr. Trump. Mr. Moore relentlessly linked the senator to Mr. McConnell, who has made a priority of protecting his caucus from intra-party challenges, but is an increasingly toxic figure among grassroots Republicans. Day